All right.
All right,
We're
we're
running.
live.
Well, not really live.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yes.
So,
We should probably do an introduction. Who's who?
yeah,
Yeah. You want to go first?
I guess so.
It's your studio.
Apartment studio, Mount Vernon. What'd she say?
I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm Jeff Christopher. I've been a lieutenant for about 3 years now in my volunteer department. I'm a big engine guy. I love playing with the hose and just working with the line and teaching younger guys the traits.
And Jeff, what's your social media handle?
You can find me at Fire Life Motivation on Instagram or Facebook.
Nice. So, my name is Zach Polvino. I've been a firefighter for about 12 years now, going into, I think, my 13th year of service, over 2 tours, 2 stints, same department. I'm been a lieutenant on and off. My first stint, I was a lieutenant for a year and a half, and I'm currently a lieutenant now. Again, going into my second year, full year. Previously, my previous experience has been on the engine, although right now I'm currently assigned the lieutenant of the heavy rescue. But I still love engine work. Still love doing a lot of hose line stretching, drills about hose lines, hose line advancements, standard operating procedures and guidelines, whatever you happen to call it. Nozzle work. Big fan of that kind of stuff. But as a volunteer, Jeff and I are in the same volunteer department. I think as volunteers we have to be pretty cross trained across the board, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
No matter the fire can come in, and so perfect example. It was about a week ago. We had a small kitchen fire in an apartment. And I arrived on scene in my personal vehicle. Jeff, you came down on engine one.
Yep.
So again, you're on the primary attack line, primary engine. By the time I grabbed an air pack and was able to get in, you guys had a pretty full crew that was going to work.
Yeah, it was like three guys that were easily manageable.
Yeah, and it wasn't a huge fire either,
No,
right? I mean, it was relatively maintained, but again, working fire, a lot of smoke pushing, for actually 6 unit apartment building. So I took a crew, a small crew, up to the floor above. Did primary searches. We had reports that everybody was out of the structure, but again, being an aggressive fire department, we do those types of things. There's an aggressive push with the line. You guys had an 1.75" off and flaked with a smoothbore nozzle ready to go, and we made entry to the upstairs to the second floor, actually the third floor. When you look at the apartment, we look at the building. There was 2 apartments that are somewhat below grade. What would be sort of considered the first floor is actually the second floor. So I ended up
Yeah,
going
you
to
go
the
up.
third floor, 2 apartments up there. We forced a door in one of the apartments. Again, had a decent smoke condition, but we can't just go on the reports that somebody's out, right?
Oh,
We got to make sure.
you can never trust it because you just don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, then someone's up there and they happen to die. You have to live with that then.
Right. So I guess where I was going with that though is, right, depending on where you are, depending on if you're at the firehouse, depending on if you're going right to the scene, if it's our fire, you may have a different role. You may not always be riding the engine. You may be on the rescue. You may be on the truck company. So depending on where things go, you got to kind of know all those roles, and that goes not just for the officers, but that goes for our firefighters, our regular firemen. They got to be able to, if we tell them, hey, take a 6 foot hook and go in there and start pulling ceiling, they know what they're doing. They also have to be able to take a line, and go put fire out, or they have to be able to do a primary and then secondary search. So all those roles are important. I really do think that when it comes to being a fire department, an aggressive fire department, that's an important thing. I do think, though, that there is some.
What, like specialty or.
Yeah, but before I get to that part, what I was going to say, because I said now that we're an aggressive fire department a few times.
But.
And I think here's the rub. Some people hear aggressive, and I think they take it into the wrong context. Aggressive does not equal reckless. And that's one of the big things, right?
Right.
You see it on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, the Facebook warriors, the keyboard warriors, right?
Yeah.
They're too aggressive. They shouldn't be doing this. Well, you're looking at a picture or a video that's a moment in time. So, A, I don't like playing armchair quarterback on any fire department or any fire that I see. B, come to our fire company, come to our fire department, see how we operate, right? When we need to go in and do a search and take a line into the seat of the fire, we do it. If there's times that, the incident commander, the chief of department gets there and says, guys, you know what, this is defensive. We'll pull back and we'll do that. I just wanted to put that out there because I think some people kind of get in their minds that if you say aggressive, you're reckless.
No.
There's a lot of great aggressive departments out there. The 4-letter Big Brother, right?
Right.
The
But look how coordinated they are. They
Yeah.
see it as just another day at the office.
right. Even the big paid department that's 10 minutes down the road from us.
Mm-hmm.
They're an aggressive department, but if you listen to the radio, there's a lot of times, hey, that house is going and it's fully involved, right? That terminology is also questionable sometimes. Not necessarily with them, but just in general.
Yeah.
What is fully involved versus well involved?
Yeah, we've seen pictures. Is it the garage or is it the whole house?
Yeah, so it's, so again, aggressive. I really don't think aggressive equals reckless. So, I know that was one of the things that we had on our list here of things to talk about today. Kind of,
Right.
and I think this is kind of getting off to a good start. We're talking about a lot of different things that we've seen over the years.
Exactly. Because everyone wants to go full bore talking about the recklessness, but you got to have that balance between reckless and being aggressive.
And I think the other thing too, right? You can have a defensive operation that is still aggressive. Saturday morning, our department went mutual aid to the volunteer department right next door to us. We were on the automatic assignment for a garage fire. And this wasn't any ordinary garage. This was a at least 4-car, 2-story plus garage. Partially under construction, mostly completed.
How far, what would you say the lay was off the road?
Probably a good 200 plus feet.
So it's not like your typical residential house where it's 50 feet, if that.
Right,
off
yeah,
the
your
road.
setback was pretty far. We pulled up. Their first out engine was already on location. They were beginning to stretch some 2.5 lines off. We pulled up. We hit the hydrant. They laid in from the hydrant, which was probably about 150, maybe 200 feet from the incident. Our pumper picked up on that feed and fed them. Then our crew went up and we started pulling 2.5s. We had my crew. I know specifically. We had a full engine, so we had 8 plus the chief and 1 rider with the chief, who then geared up. We pulled. We kind of split across 2 different 2.5 lines. We had a 2.5 going with the smooth bore nozzle. My crew had a 2.5 with the blitz fire. The primary company had another 2.5 up there that they were working. So we had right away 3 2.5s going.
It's a lot of water.
A lot of water. I think at one point the primary company broke their 2.5 down to and threw an 1 3/4 length on there for a little bit more maneuverability. I think they were going to try to make a push. The incident commander came back over the radio and said, no, we're not going inside yet. We're gonna knock down the majority of this fire before we make any entry. And that's what we did. We had a lot of water on that fire right away between our blitz, the other 2.5. They had a line on the number 3 side going. So there was a lot of water.
A lot of water, at least 2,000 gallons a minute.
Oh yeah,
Easily.
yeah. Now we had, I think, a pretty decent hydrant that we were on, but you could see, the advantages of in our suburban town, we're first ring suburb of a large city, decent water,
Right.
Hydrants every 500 feet, maybe even less, and we had a trying to remember if it was a 4-inch or 5-inch large diameter hose that they had. I think it was 4 inch.
Yeah.
We're 4 inch.
Yeah, they run with a 4 inch just NST.
Yeah, they had the NST threads on there. We
Yeah.
run a 4 inch Storts connection, but again, we have the adapters to overcome, and that's something we drill on in practice.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Well, yeah, and it's a little bit more than that too, right? Every situation presents differently. This one, we kind of had, we were given orders over the radio. It was a short drive. I mean, this was literally
Like a 2 minute drive.
yeah. I mean, this fire, if it was two houses over, south or north rather, it would have been our district, right? I mean, this was just
Easily.
on the edge. So we were kind of going in thinking about it as if it was our first due. So, but yeah, it was a good fire, good job. Obviously, we had a lot of practice from Thursday night with our small kitchen fire, and then
Actually, going back to Wednesday when you think about it,
yeah,
because we had our SOP drill.
yeah, we did, we
or
did.
SOG.
Yeah, we did have a good drill, and we talked a lot about different situations and how we would lay out lines, and what is our SOG, but then kind of what is our SOG plus, right?
Right.
What would be some things that we might do?
Talk about different lays, like a dead end lay too, but our primary feeder operation for a bread and butter house fire was what we really went over. And what we pretty much executed then on Thursday.
Right. Thursday night we, that first line was off, and I mean the fire on Thursday was held pretty much in the 12 by 12 area of the kitchen with a can.
Yeah. 2.5 gallons of water.
Yeah, put out a lot of fire. Held it, and then it was just mopped up with the 1 3/4 inch. Again, even though our crews, our SOG is the first engine pulls past the house or the building, so you leave the front open for the truck. Our second in engine then stops at the first engine, drops their 4 inch, and then proceeds to the hydrant. And they did that. They proceeded to the hydrant, made the corner, down the other side street, hit that hydrant, charged their 4 inch to engine one. So there was plenty of water. I don't think we ended up, if you think about it, we probably could have held it everything with 500 gallons that we have in the booster tank. But it's still good to have, right?
Yeah.
Our
Consistent
SOG
practice.
our SOG executed perfectly without having a lot of screaming on the radio of this is what you need to do. There wasn't engine 2, drop your line here, do this, do that. It was boop, engine 1 on location. Lines are stretched, without even the chief having to give that order. And we were ready to go. We were rocking and rolling.
Yeah, there was no unneeded radio transmissions like other areas and
Yeah. And you know what? That's not a knock on anybody, right?
no, it's just things I noticed. I know you noticed, Zach, about it.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, and again, not to knock on anybody and not to call anybody out, but just to say that it all comes back to how you practice. And if you have well-defined standard operating guidelines or standard operating procedures, whatever you call it, those things work well. So there's a storm rolling through here.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to rain again.
Yeah, so you might hear a little bit of wind because we're sitting on the second floor of an apartment with house with windows open. So
Yeah, in the 2-3 corner.
so I guess so Jeff, you got a whole bunch of stuff in front of you.
Yeah, just some stuff I typed up last week. Just common leadership stuff and how it's sort of important to the fire service.
Mm-hmm. What's critical?
But yeah, it's critical, like you said. Starting off is what is leadership, what it is, traits, personality, integrity of it.
Sure. So to me, leadership is a rather broad term that kind of covers and applies a lot of things. There's a lot to it. It's not just, in our case, wearing a fancy red helmet with a radio strap and, you know, being on the front seat of the pumper going in. And you can kind of get into all the tactics of being a leader. But at a more conceptual level, to me, you know, again, a leader in this kind of case, you know, is really there isn't to me one way to do things,
No,
right?
there never is.
Right. So as a leader, you have to be able to kind of touch on different styles of leadership depending on the situation, depending on the person. I guess kind of getting into the second bullet point there, some of the traits, to me, a lot of it comes down to integrity, your honesty. If you can't be trusted, guys won't listen to you.
Oh, we've seen that. Just even in our little department. How lack of respect, maybe, or do you think just how they come off with being a person?
Well, I think there's more to it than that. I mean, some of my other points here, I think, would be right. You have to be a people person in a sense. You can't be totally, you know, bending over backwards for everybody, right?
No, you can't be the yes man.
Right. You're a leader. You have to make decisions. Sometimes those decisions are going to be uncomfortable, or unpopular. But, you know, you have to be open to some new ideas. You have to be, you know, at least willing to learn, and always be kind of expanding your own knowledge base. Whether, again, it's both tactically and it's how to put a fire out, or, you know, how to cut apart a car, or it's learning about your people, learning about how to lead people, learning how to be a leader.
It's continuous. It's nonstop.
It is. It absolutely is. You have to be continually learning, no matter what your position is in the fire service. Whether you're the as Ryan Peddington would call from Jump Seat Nation, whether you're the jump seat fireman, you know, the guy just getting on the job, and you know, we treat this as a job even though we're both volunteer. Whether it's that jump seat fireman, or it's somebody who's more of a senior member, lieutenants, captains, assistant chiefs, battalion chiefs, whatever your department calls them, you know, you have to be continually learning, and wanting to improve yourself.
You gotta be self reassessing constantly, I feel.
You do have to always look at yourself in the mirror. I'm a big fan of that, and there are times that I fail at doing it. I'll be the first one to admit, as I'm getting rained on here. you, you have to.
Come on, you're the engine guy.
Yeah.
Too. Well, water never hurt anyone.
You absolutely have to sometimes take a step back and admit when you're wrong. Admit when you've made a mistake. That recently has happened to me. I've had to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? I was in the wrong. I said some things in a situation that I probably shouldn't have. I didn't have all the full information, and I kind of let my emotions get a little bit the better of me. Now, things happen. I think the biggest thing from that is, you know, for me, again, I take it as some self-reflection, and take that away, and then move forward from it. Learn from that. Definitely learn from it. You know, and when I'm in that situation again, it's, you know, I handle it differently.
Because of that past experience, you're sort of going to control your emotions then.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's
It's pretty much what training is. To take you back to that past experience to give you that type of reality again.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, you know, I think there's a big part of it though is, like you said, Jeff, you have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to be willing to kind of think the situation through maybe afterwards. I'm a big proponent of, I keep a journal, a daily journal, not just stuff that happens to me in the fire department, but stuff that happens to me in my paid job, my 9 to 5, regular job. Um, those situations again, so I can learn from them. I can go back to it and look at it and say, hey, this is how I handled it, and probably I should have done this differently, or hey, I did this really well, and I should do that again, right? So I think a lot of times, real quick, that I want to say, because it just popped in my mind, we talk about self-reflection, and I think we kind of give it a negative spin, right? It's always,
Right.
you're self-reflecting what you did wrong.
But there's a difference between constructive and criticism with it.
There is, but you should also look back and say, hey, I did this really well. I really did a good job here. And that way you can say, again, you apply that to the next time.
Right.
It's not always negative. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the negativity of a situation. We can get caught up in, it's always wrong, or I did this wrong, whatever. Sometimes you just got to say, hey, you know what? The situation worked out. Look at me. Not in a arrogant sort of way.
Right.
But just say, hey, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know how to handle this. Next time this happens, yeah, I'm the guy. I know.
Right.
I think the other thing too, is kind of going back to those traits again, talking about being a people person, but it's really more of a servant leader. It's empowering your people, right? We shouldn't be afraid as officers, as leaders. We shouldn't be afraid of making more leaders, right? We should be empowering the people that are coming up behind us. Because again, we're not, not that we're, not going to be here, but you're not guaranteed, right?
Exactly.
Something could happen, and especially in the volunteer service, right? Let's face it, something could happen where, life takes you into a different direction. And, if I, hypothetically, if I, step away, just, who's going to fill that role, right? And hopefully it's somebody that has, kind of learned along the way. But again, it's also going back to servant leadership. It's also, to me, it's about how do you prepare your people to make decisions and execute without you micromanaging them, right? So again, we had that fire last Thursday.
Everyone just knew their job to their extent as you keep getting rained on, but
as long as the microphone doesn't get wet.
it's under warranty.
Okay. But yeah, everybody does their job, right? Everybody just goes ahead and does their thing without having necessarily
that communication factor.
That officer that's sitting up front, or if you're sitting in the back, because there's a captain up ahead of you having, again, to tell somebody, okay, now Billy, take the line here and do this and go up here.
But that sort of takes it back to knowing your people of their capabilities.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That crew that came off at Engine 1 was a pretty experienced, solid crew. Right.
For the most part, it was.
Right. And I think the other part with experience is it's not just the time in. Because you can be in for a long period of time and
not have as many fires or whatever.
Yeah.
Gain that experience.
Yeah. So you had a lot of guys, though, on Engine 1 that night that got off, been there before. They've done this. They know what they're doing on Engine 1, and, take the line. Boom. That line was stretched and flaked out at the door, and they had, the 50 feet of working length right at that door.
Yeah, we did just do a little correctiveness, nothing major, but...
And again, that's, I think, to be expected on every run.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because a lot of them haven't really had that stress of the real thing happening.
I think, going back to that incident in particular, I think we had a shorter setback than we're used to.
Oh, yeah. It was like 20 feet.
Yeah, right?
It was short.
Right? We probably could have pulled, if we pulled our 200-foot crosslay. That's how we operate. That's our SOG. If we were a department that didn't run crosslays and, we were estimating the stretch, we probably could have pulled, 100 feet. 150 feet and been good. But, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, because we still had a lot of line still left out.
Yeah.
afterwards.
Oh yeah. I mean, the 50 foot. At one point, I came downstairs to talk to the chief real quick, and that 50 foot coupling was right at the door, and there was a lot of line inside, and I mean, it wasn't far off of the front entrance, right? It was maybe what 8 steps up, if that,
If that, it wasn't
and then it was a quick
a quick
right, and then a quick left,
Yeah.
and literally the fire was right there. So
Yeah, maybe 20 feet inside the residence.
yeah, and again with a smooth bore, with
A lot of reach.
a lot of reach, a lot,
A lot
of
of
penetration,
penetration.
Good water source.
Yeah.
We weren't worried about being right. Wasn't like you had to be right there, but we were. So, oh, there's the rain. So what else? What else you want to hit on?
Um. Well, while you were talking about your personality and traits, it pretty much brought me back to extreme ownership.
Hang on, folks.
All right, we're back.
Okay, so before we cut there for that little break, Jeff, you were talking about extreme ownership. So you had some thoughts that you wanted to hit on.
Yeah. I spent some time reading Extreme Ownership, How the U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I highly recommend it. It is a great book. I also spend a ton of time listening to their podcast by Jocko with Echo Charles. But extreme ownership is something that you definitely have to take into account for everything you do, without a doubt. You might think it's the team doing something wrong, it could just end up being you not realizing it, or even your ego can play a big role in just how you want to tackle something or give orders or feel that self-empowerment of it.
Yeah, ego. I think you've heard it a lot at different. You hear it a lot in different podcasts. Go back to some of the ones that I listen to, whether it's the guys I really enjoy from Flow and Vent, or National Fire Radio, Ryan Pennington, his podcast, my buddy, new buddy Sean Egan, who's in the Thin Red Line Radio. A lot of things that these guys talk about, one of the common things is the ego, right? Ego kills, whether it's figuratively or literally. Your ego can kill your credibility.
It takes over you.
It does.
It does.
It's
swallows
indulgent.
you up.
It's indulgent, right? You're indulging in, you're really kind of indulging in your own image of yourself, whether it's right or wrong, and it can make it kind of a difficult situation, right? Because not everybody's perfect. We don't know everything.
No, it's impossible to.
It's impossible to be perfect, right? So I
Exactly.
said earlier, I was saying earlier before our break, recently I made a mistake. I'm not perfect, but it's owning up to it, right? It's that ownership.
100%. I think it tells a lot about a person whether you come out and say you own something, whether it was right or wrong.
Yeah, I agree. With that, you look at where's I going here? With ownership, right? We talk about it. It's not just me owning the rig I'm assigned to, and me, making sure my rig is ready to go, right? We talk about it and say, oh, well, I own that rig. I'm the guy in charge of the rescue. Right, but it's ownership in general as a leader, right? Of me saying, hey, you know what? I want to step up. I want to be a lieutenant. I want to move towards being a leader. And I own my actions. I own my words. Good, bad, right, wrong. I take care of what needs to get taken care of, both again tactically, also, but then also, again, as Jeff, as you pointed out, right, it says a lot about somebody,
Character.
big time. It's a
It
big,
is.
it's a big component of it, right? It's a big component of character, is a big component of leadership. And we judge people on that. Again, right, wrong, and different. It's a human quality. We judge somebody based on their character and whether we think they're a good person, or whether we think, hey, they're a good person, but maybe they're not in the right role.
Definitely. Like, just simple tasks or calls going out and not going or whatnot. The simple things. That it just speaks volumes of like who they are, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's some of it is your level of dedication, but again, we kind of got to be careful here, right?
It's like a gray area.
We're coming from a strictly volunteer department. We don't have experience in the paid side of things. So when we talk about, going to calls, your dedication, right? Everybody does have a life outside of this. And sometimes I think we do have to be respectful of that, right? Sometimes there are things going on in somebody's life that not everybody else knows about. They keep it private, whatever it is.
Right.
And sometimes those things,
They just come up and get in the way, and some people don't recognize it, or they
yeah,
can't see past it.
yeah. But again, I think, again, we gotta, sometimes we do have to temper that with, again, and not to sound like, oh, we're just volunteers, but because we are volunteers, there's, right, it's not like you can put in and say, I want to take a vacation now. I want to use my PTO. We don't
Right.
have it, right? So somebody may say, hey, you know what? I'm kind of be gone for the next week or so from calls, unless it's a fire, a rollover accident, mutual aid, whatever. But again, it kind of goes back to that ownership. You have to know yourself. You have to know your limits. I think sometimes we talk about burnout, because it's people that push beyond maybe where they need to be, or they need to kind of take that break to recharge.
Yes. Definitely. You need that recharge time, I feel. Just because you get so well involved in the nitty gritty of it. You can't, it's sort of hard to pull yourself back because you don't want to just let go of it for a week, because then you feel like you're left out.
Yeah, I agree.
But then when you come back with your batteries recharged, you're like, all right, I have a clear mind. Let's go out and do this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is a big thing, right? I think, you talk to a lot of guys, right? I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to FDIC in Indy the last 2 years. Great week. Awesome. Love it.
It gets you fired up again.
It does, but at the same time, I also find that, like, this year is the first year that I went. Not the first year I went. It's the first time I went since my daughter's been born. So all I wanted to do Saturday when we were traveling back is just get home, walk in my house, and pick up my little girl.
Right.
And just lay there on the couch and kind of fall asleep, And my wife took that picture of I'm asleep on the couch. I got my little daughter sitting on my chest, sleeping. Got the blanket over us. We probably slept there for a good 45 minutes to an hour. And that was, so again, while I was recharged from the fire service side, I would also missed
Your home life.
I missed my home life for a week. So there's the balances, right?
Yeah.
Again, I know that I can't, when I'm home, I'm not working my regular 9 to 5 job. I can't run out to every single call, right? Because it puts a strain on my wife.
Her.
Yeah. I'd love
Uh,
to because I love going to fires. I love going to fire calls. Whether it's I even like going to EMS calls sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's
but
finding that balance.
yeah, right. It is, and
It is.
sometimes it's saying, hey, you know what, this isn't my squad week. I'm not on squad this week, and the call is on the other side of the district. They got it. You know, hey, Jeff's on squad this week. I know he's gonna get, the EMS rig out. You know,
Right.
again, and then when my week comes up, I'm there. I'm on. I'm ready to go. So what else you got?
Um.
We're kind of a little all over the place here based on your outline. Not that anybody else really can see it.
Yeah, but I don't know. Sort of feel like I'm a sporadic person sometimes. Just because
Well, yeah, and
it's bouncing all over.
I think a lot of these topics or bullet points here, they obviously all fit into each other. It all fits into the central theme of leadership. It all falls under this big umbrella, like I said earlier, right? Leadership is this broad idea. It's a
Yeah.
broad concept.
It's like seeing a billboard that says leadership.
It is, right?
It grabs your attention, but what else is there with it?
Yeah. It's going into the big box store called Leadership, and
Yeah.
there's 40 different aisles of different things, and I
They
think
all funnel down to the same idea.
they do, but it can be overwhelming, right?
Right.
We can look at leadership and say, well, I want to talk about all of this, but I'm not an expert in all of this.
Right.
I find what I'm good at, right? I find, developing my own leadership, right? As a young leader, we have to develop ourselves first before we can develop anybody else.
Pretty much finding out who you are.
Yeah. I mean, earlier we talked about knowing your crew, knowing your people, right? We have to know our people in our own fire departments.
I mean, it's a little harder for us because you never know who's going to be on the rig or whatnot.
Right. And, you also have 70 different personalities, different people to kind of figure out, work
Right.
with, you know, um, I can't speak to being a paid house, but, you pretty much have your crew set. You know who's going to be there.
For the most part, especially at night, we're going to know who our Engine 1 crew is going to be.
Oh yeah, for us,
Yeah.
for sure. Again, it goes back to
Pretty much who gets up, who doesn't.
not only so much that, right, but you kind of know who works when, right?
Right.
You're not gonna see me on a Monday through Friday, pretty much between the hours of 8 in the morning to about 5:30 at night, because I'm going to work, working, coming home from work, unless it's the really rare occasion where we get a big working fire. And I can leave my job. I'm a little bit fortunate enough to be able to do that, right now at least.
Yeah, because you got some flexibility
Yeah, I do.
easily.
I do. Right. So you kind of know who's gonna be there, like you said, at night. On a Saturday night, like a night like tonight, call drops. You kind of know who's gonna be around. We talk to everybody. We know, hey, so and so is gonna be out. They're going over here to this party. This graduation party right now or whatever.
Right.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So a good friend of ours is, sent us a text, said, hey guys, you know what? I'm not going to be around this weekend. I'm going down to my property. I just need a little bit of time, kind of away from work, away from the firehouse, recharge.
Right.
And
like we were going back to before, getting your batteries recharged. It's a great component, like psychologically and mentally, physically too. But it's good coming back just fresh.
yeah, because again, if you're not recharging yourself, and you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be all in,
No,
right?
it sort of puts you in like a pause or a daze.
you're not. Yeah, you're
if you
not.
think about it.
It does. It does, and you're not playing at 100%. Right? It's like that. The battery that's not fully charged.
Right.
Right?
It's like going through the motions. Just going through the motions. You're not making that mental assumption, building that physical memory of, all right, this is what I got to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, you're there. The lights are on, but is anybody really home?
Exactly.
So again, you got to take that time, step away, kind of reassess some things. Reassess yourself, how you've performed over the last couple of weeks. Figure out what you want to do, and you come back and you have that all in kind of mentality, because it is. I mean, let's face it. Again, our department, our area of the suburban area of Western New York here, we don't burn a lot. The big cities do, but the suburban outlying areas where we are, we don't necessarily burn a lot. So we're not seeing a lot of heavy fire load. It's a lot of EMS calls.
A handful of MVAs, but nothing critical.
Right, right. So, sometimes, it's like, oh, geez, I'm going to this address again for the same problems. Well, yeah, but you know what? That's our job. That's what we've signed up to do. That's what we volunteered to do in our case. But I get it. Sometimes you just need to say, hey, you know what, guys, I'm not going to be around this weekend. I'm not on squad. I'm not, guys will handle it without me. I don't need to be on every single call. Sorry, just looking at an alert. So yeah, so what else you got?
It's well, so like in one of Jocko's podcasts, they were talking about the psychological tendencies of like man from. It's a great book that they talked about. I'm gonna buy at some point, but it's based off like an 18-year-old in World War II of all these different qualities of people and like how they adhere to different situations, how they act, and just in general, like how they are as a person, like qualities and whatnot. But they also talked about your cup, how much you can take, too. So everyone's cup's different. So, like our buddy, like maybe his cup's 3/4 of the way full. Maybe he just wants to empty it back out and just because he knows his limits of what
Sure.
he can take.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way of putting it. Kind of a good way of thinking about it, right? We can kind of all picture that, and kind of put that whole thing together. Some of the other stuff we've talked about that we've got on the list here. I think one of the big ones that you've put on here is the transitioning from a firefighter to an officer. In our world, in the volunteer world, in a lot of volunteer departments, it's an election, right?
Yep.
It's sometimes who puts their name in, and you got a couple different guys or girls, and it's the votes, right? Who gets the votes? Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's the way of the world. It's the way our world works.
I mean, granted that we still have requirements that you have to reach in order to be there.
Right. But
I mean, for our department personally.
Right. But I would say one of the things that I think we struggle with, and not just our department, I think it's across, you've heard it a lot of different places. Again, FDIC, talk to some of the guys that have gone to Firehouse, listen to other podcasts. One of the things that we struggle with is we don't develop our own leaders, right? So I'm fortunate in my day job. My day job is working as a project manager in technology, the technology division of a large financial services institution, who puts a big emphasis on developing our own talent. And part of that is developing leaders within our company, and paying for me to spend 8 hours in a class all about communication and learning how I communicate, learning what makes me an effective project manager, because of my, what I like to think as, my ability to simplify. Right? I don't need to be totally into the weeds and know every single technical detail. I need to know who's on my team. I need to know my people.
Yeah, which brings us back up to earlier with knowing your people. But another good point that he brought up is simplifying. I feel like a lot of people want to reinvent the wheel.
In what way? What way do you think?
Listen, I don't know, maybe for
Like change for the sake of change versus change because it's, research and this is what we want to do.
I'm feeling more like in general,
Okay.
people want that.
I don't think it's uncommon, for anybody to be placed into a management position or leadership position. And everybody wants to change, right? Everybody wants to do things their way. They think they have the greatest idea ever.
But that's like the biggest mistake, too.
It can be. It can be. Yeah.
Yeah, just jumping right in and grabbing the bull by its horns, thinking that I'm going to change everything now because I'm the leader. That's their intentions.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Absolutely. I certainly think change can be a good thing. Right. My personality is, I don't necessarily. I'll challenge the status quo, and if I find out that process or procedure is there for a reason and it makes sense, I'm good with it. If you give me the old, well, that's just the way we've always done it, then we're gonna start diving into it, and we're gonna start to look at it, right? I think, Jeff, you and I had this last year, with the hose lines and our nozzles, right? We talked about, we're a smooth bore shop, right? Everything we run, with the exception of the trash line for car fires or dumpster fires, is smooth bore, whether that's on the 1 3/4 or the 2.5. A lot of research obviously went into that. I'm a fan of the smooth bore, huge fan, right? A lot of research went into that. Guys
Right.
talking years ago, now almost 20, 25 years ago, having gone to FDIC and learning from the man himself, learning from Andy Fredericks, guys taking the New York State, engine company class, a lot of it written by Andy. And those concepts weren't necessarily, groundbreaking when Andy Fredericks published them in fire engineering and firehouse.
Right. They're just simple.
Right. But these are things that, the fire service kind of got away from for whatever reason. I'm not here to judge or be critical of that. So Jeff and I wanted to understand why our flow rates were set at where they were, what our standard operating guidelines said you should pump at, for 200 feet of 1 3/4 with a smooth bore on it, right?
Right.
But
we also have a 15/16 tip on there, too.
right, but regardless of what size tip we had on there, right, of us looking at kind of some numbers that were in the industry,
Right.
and
The
looking
type
at
of hose we have.
and looking at the numbers that we had within our own department, a lot of it was, we got questioned, not questioned in a negative way, but somebody said to us, a lot of work and a lot of research went into this. Why are you guys, barking up this tree? And it wasn't that we thought they were wrong, but we wanted to know, right?
Like we talked about before outside of here, but it's that why. The why factor that led them to that.
Right.
to make that decision for it.
So I think it's worth pointing out that you and I are members of the quote unquote millennial generation, right?
Right.
We're at the tail end of it. Millennials get a lot of knocks on, for various other qualities and things and, stupid internet videos.
Tide Pods.
That wasn't the millennials. That was the next generation.
Oh.
The generation after us. But the big thing is, our generation, we want to know why. We question things. And it's not to me, it's not a negative. It's us wanting to have an understanding and not just being told, well, this is the way we do things. Right?
Because that's just vague.
It's crap.
Yeah.
To me.
It's worthless.
It is, because here's the deal, right? That guy who was a chief at one point, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, who preached this and understands it, right? If he didn't pass it down to us,
what's it worth then?
What's going to happen when he is no longer active member, let's say, right?
Right.
It happens, right? Guys get to a certain age and they just say, hey, you know what? I need to take a step back, whatever. I'm going to go down to Florida for the winter, whatever. I got no problems with that. But don't leave us high and dry without knowing why decisions were made. And again, I don't think this individual was doing that. I think it was just...
They were a little awestruck, maybe?
Yeah, why we were asking these questions. And again, it was just, I think it really, for me at least, it came down to wanting to understand it better. So that if the young new firefighter came to me and said, hey, Lou, why do we do it this way? Well, this is why. I can explain it to them in a simplified way.
Right.
Hey, you're delivering, this many gallons per minute at this PSI, and that's going to give you this. This is going to put the fire out this way. That's, to me, I wanted to have that information.
Exactly. I mean, once when they understand it, then it's like, all right, that makes sense. So,
again, I think we've been a little bit all over the board here.
Yeah, that's okay.
But,
well, do you want to go back to transitioning from firefighter to an officer?
Yeah.
Where we originally were talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's pretty much just overnight. You're going to go from, all right, I'm a fireman. I'm going to run for lieutenant. Cool. I got lieutenant. I got my radio. I got my helmet. Now what?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no outline for me. It was just pretty much, all right, here you go. That was it.
Right. And again, I don't think it's, again, it's part of the nature, but it's also part of, I don't want to say, I think just in general as a fire service, we kind of...
What, whack?
Maybe, a little bit.
I mean, unless when you go down to the big city.
Oh, yeah, look
at they take care of...
Look at the 4-letter Big Brother.
Yeah.
They're in a world of their own, right? They do things differently. They can do things differently. They're the world's largest fire department.
But it works for them.
For them, it works. Not everything they do works for everybody else. But, you talk about some of the seminars, right? FDIC, Firehouse, even some local ones, whatever. Not everybody can go, right?
No.
And it's not because, our department, we're fortunate to be able to send a large number of people, right? But this year, Jeff, you couldn't go.
I couldn't go.
Because of work, right? You had work obligations. You couldn't take, time off. I'm fortunate the way that my job has played out over the last couple of years. I had I had a week that I could use as paid time off and be able to go. So how do you work with a new lieutenant, let's say, who has never been to FDIC before, and who doesn't really know, right? What are some things you can do? I think in our day and age, right, in 2019, there's this great thing called Google.
Yeah, the Google Lieutenant now.
But
I mean, but still, it's going to create a good guideline then
right,
to just general knowledge, not just this is the position,
right.
but typical traits, leadership.
And I will say this, right? There's a tremendous amount of information out there between, the pages that we produce ourselves, right? My first line leadership page on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Look me up. Right? I put out content. A lot of it is from stuff I read, whether it's different books, websites, blogs, things I hear. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Jeff, you've mentioned a couple of podcasts you listen to, specifically like Jocko's.
Yeah.
But, I think I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of the guys at Flow and Vent. I really like, got to meet Rob down at FDIC. Got to meet Jeremy from National Fire Radio. Cool guy. Right? They do a lot of stuff. They put out a tremendous amount of stuff, not just the apparatus innovations, but just in general. Some of his, if you follow him on Twitter or Facebook and Instagram, Jeremy does a lot of like 2-minute videos, on Sunday nights.
Yeah, his are just like a tailboard talk, and
Absolutely.
it's sweet and right to the point.
Right. Another guy, now I've taken 2 classes from him over the last couple of years, and I follow him. His pages, Jason Hovelman.
Yeah, we sat in on his class together, last year?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, the new company officer.
Yep. And he's got a book through Firehouse, the new company officer. It's a pretty easy read. A lot of tips and tricks, things that have worked well for him. This year I took a 4-hour seminar, pre-conference class with him. The name escapes me at the moment. I apologize. I didn't bring that with me. But probably took, again, I don't know, 6 pages of notes. Different things, right? Different situations, how to handle different things, how to handle yourself, things to learn from. But again, he's got a couple of social media pages out there, puts up a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think. The guy's, a lot of stuff on social media that is bad, right?
You gotta take the good with the bad, but
you gotta filter it. You have to filter it, and you kind of gotta know what you're looking for. The one I'm forgetting. I mentioned it earlier, but Thin Red Line Radio. My friend Sean Egan, who's the captain of a truck company in Buffalo. I've taken now his class again twice at FDIC. Even though he's a truck captain, he teaches urban engine boss stuff. But it really is just leadership, right? And whether you're a volunteer or a paid position, there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff that translates across both sides.
A lot of takeaways from either end.
Yeah,
when you think about it.
So I think if you're becoming, if you're coming up and becoming that new officer, there's a lot of stuff out there to look at, to read books, whether you buy hard copy books like Jeff and myself, or you use an e-reader, you read it on your phone, or, you get a tablet, whatever, listen to podcasts, right? Again, my job, I can pretty much listen to a podcast if I'm not on a conference call. So it's great.
Must be nice.
But again, but also there's, a good, I got a 20-minute commute depending on traffic up to my office, so I throw it on, in the morning I like to listen to the local sports talk radio. But, in the afternoon, if I don't want to listen to the local Gomers, talk about the dysfunctional hockey team and football team, I can throw on an episode of, Jump Seat or National Fire or, Flow and Vent. Even go back It sounds kind of sad, but even go back and listen to episodes I've listened to in the past.
Yeah, because maybe you missed something that you never realized then, but then now you do and see how it relates back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. My notebook that I have here in front of me, I got a lot of things written down from a podcast, from Flow and Vent, from a couple, one of their earlier podcasts. They were talking about some stuff. And I probably listened to this podcast 3 times. It was just so good. But I wrote down, I kept pausing and rewinding and going back and listening to again because I wanted to write down certain things that they said because it stuck with me. It inspired me to be a better officer myself, or it inspired kind of some thoughts of things that I wanted to write about for myself, or to possibly publish, in an article, whether it was just going to be in our department's newsletter, or something that I might, something I'm working on, for larger publication.
Yeah, I actually do the same thing with Jocko's podcast. Just go back and just type it back into my notes folder on my phone just because it stands out. It's important. I can see how it relates back to the fire service.
Yeah, I think just for my notebook, give you an example here. There was, an episode, I think it was, it was the guys from, it was earlier in February of this year. The guys from National Fire Radio were with the guys from Flow and Vent, and I probably wrote 2 pages here of notes. You have to do those self-improvement things. And one of the big notes that I wrote and highlighted and underlined is the ego part, right? We talked about it earlier.
Yep.
But it's that ego and how it can hurt, how it can kill. How, when you get new guys that come into the department, we have to embrace them. We have to understand that they're going to be different from us.
Yeah,
There's a generational difference. And we have to understand that it's okay that they don't know. We can't expect them to know everything right off the bat, right?
Right.
Sometimes I think we forget that I've been associated with this department for 14 years. 12 years of service. I've kind of learned a thing or two.
Right.
Again, by far, not an expert, don't know everything. Always learning something. But if I say to a probie, hey, go take the case saw out of the rescue and fire it up. A, do they know what the rescue is? B, do they know what the case saw is?
No. Do they know where it is first?
Good point, right? Good point.
Because, when I initially joined the department, it was like, know these rigs because you're going to be the gopher. Go get this, go get that. It's like, get everything memorized, what's in them, and how they're set up on each rig.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Good point there. Know the rigs, right? And again, and that goes for not just probies. That goes
Everyone.
For everybody. That goes for guys who have, I don't care whether you're in for a year, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. Know your rigs, right? You may be riding the rescue with me to an MVA and I say, hey, I need this. Well, give me that deer in the headlights look. In the moment, I'm probably just going to say, okay, stand aside and I'll go do it. Afterwards, actually this happened. A couple months ago. We were at MVA. Remember, I said, hey, go get the brooms. Sweep up some of the speedy dry that's down.
Right.
Looked at me. Where are the brooms? I went back. I said, okay, let me get them. Brought them to the side of the rig. Here's where the brooms are. Put them together. Let's go. Swept up, cleaned up. Got back to the firehouse afterwards. Pulled them aside. Nothing nasty, nothing mean. Just said, hey, dude, you got to kind of know where this stuff is, right?
Right.
And I said to him, I said, hey, learn the rig because I'm just going to randomly question you over the next week. Say, hey, where's this? Where's the chainsaws?
Right. Well, then when you think about it, a little more fine, you sort of create a higher expectation then because you're set in that, oh, I'm going to quiz you now.
Yeah, and again, I guess I want to say, I didn't.
It's not like a bad thing, but
No, and
it's sort of like the type of person you are, too.
yeah, and I kind of made it a not necessarily a joke because it was a serious thing, right? But it just kind of said, hey,
I mean, it's Brones, but
like, hey, dude, come on, you gotta know where things are,
yeah.
you know. Whether it's me or whether it's you or whatever, whoever the other officer is, they might just say, hey, do this. And if they don't, some people might negatively react. Some people will react differently.
Right.
Like the captain of the rescue kind of gave me that idea and said, hey, he goes, why don't you tell him this? Why don't you tell him, we'll quiz you over the next week.
Yeah, because that's sort of instilling in his mind.
Yeah, and it was funny because the next time I went up to him, I said, "Hey, where's the portable generator?" Oh, I know right where it is. Okay, show me. Here it is. Good.
Or if you really want to be good, you'd be like, tell me what's in this compartment without opening it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what class at Indy I took, but that was like a new probie comes on. They went around the rig once, and they were like, all right, I'm going to quiz you again next week, and we're not going to open any doors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we played the pops. What is it? The popsicle stick game.
Yeah, we did that. Well, initially with 7, then the rescue.
Yeah, we've done it. So 7 is our EMS rig, right? It's our light rescue.
Band-Aid rig.
Yeah. Yeah. Not quite an ambulance. First aid squad. But we had a captain who's now stepped down after, I don't know what, 10 plus years as a captain, pretty much doing all EMS.
Yep.
So what he did was his job before he retired from his full-time job was a teacher, a school teacher, specifically working with special needs kids and high risk kids. So he's got kind of a different background, right? Volunteer fire service. Everybody's got kind of a different background. We draw from that. Right. We draw on, Jeff. I'm picking on Jeff here a little bit, right? Jeff's got a mechanical background, right? He's good with his hands. He can pretty much take equipment apart, know how it operates, put it back together, right? Tremendous asset in the fire service. Our good friend we've been referencing, right?
Right.
He works for a utility company. So, we get calls that involve natural gas.
He's our go-to guy.
He's our go-to guy, right? He's the guy that knows this stuff because of his job. My job, right? What do I bring to the table as a project manager? Some of the more soft skills, right? I'm still good with my hands, so I like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because of your previous history.
Right, but it's also bringing, understanding some of the, if you're going to put a bid, you're going to put something out to bid.
Right.
Right? It's understanding that process and how to manage that process. Not everybody, again, is an expert in everything. So we have people across the board. Where was I going with this? Completely lost my train of thought.
I did too.
Oh, the popsicle stick game.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
You want one? We got some.
So the popsicle stick game, right? You take a red Solo cup.
Red Solo cup.
Now I'm gonna pay royalties for that.
No, we don't.
You take a bunch of popsicle sticks and you write on there a piece of equipment or an item, right? You stick them in there. Shake up the cup, and at random, somebody pulls it out and say, "Okay, hey, you got to go find the Sager splint. Where is it on the rig?" And they got to go get it, and not just tell you where it is. They got to go get it and bring it back.
Physically go get it, then bring it back to me.
Right, and hey, you know what? It's a learning experience, right? Because not everybody. Again, sometimes we forget some of it's the more eccentric equipment that we don't get to use that often. Right.
Gas pants.
Yeah. But. And so, somebody's like, "Oh, I don't know where it is." Okay, hey, you know what?
Let's take the time now.
No big deal. Let's all learn where it is. Let's reinforce for those of you that already know where it is.
Yes,
reinforce
because we're human. We tend to forget.
We do. That's why we drill
That's
on
human.
SOGs. That's why we incorporate, at least in our department, we incorporate our standard operating guidelines, our standard operating procedures, whatever we call them this week, our best practices. We
Pretty much.
incorporate those into every drill we do, right? And again, look at the four-letter Big Brother. Their SOGs are out there online. You can Google it. You can find them. Again, they're much more in-depth and detailed because of New York City, right? It's a unique place in and of itself.
Right.
So we don't see a lot of, 5-story walk-ups in our first due. But, right, look at how they structure their SOGs. Look how they structure everything and put that all together so that, we bring in some probies. Maybe it's not a bad idea to print off all of the SOGs and have them in a binder ready to go.
Right.
Here you go, bud. Hey, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining. Here's a binder full of SOGs, right? You don't have to read them all at once. They'll put you to sleep. But read through them. And when you have questions, these are the officers to go to. These are the captains you should talk to. If it's a question about the heavy rescue, talk to this captain, talk to myself. If it's a engine question, talk to Jeff, talk to the engine captain. Right? If it's a question for the tower ladder, talk to the truck captain, truck lieutenant.
Yeah, you just include like your officer tier with that too. Like, here, reference these guys now. Going with that SOG packet. I mean, there really should be a introductory welcome aboard. This is what you really should know when you join.
Right.
And start becoming active.
First things first, we put the wet stuff on the hot stuff. Put water on fire, right? But that's a big thing.
Then all your problems go away.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? Here's the history of our department.
Yep.
Here's what we've done over the last 100+ years. This is maybe why, we do things a certain way, right? We've found over practice that the way we respond works for us, the way we position our apparatus. We're one of the only, I shouldn't say this as so much of a matter of fact, but one of the things that we do with our department is we have one central firehouse, and we have what are called the running cards, right? And it's how we know how to get from the firehouse to that street. And every rig follows the same path. So the incident commander knows he's got his rigs or her rigs coming in the same direction, right? So it makes apparatus placement much easier, right? The last time Chief Salka was up here.
Salka, Lasky.
The last time that Chiefs Lasky and Salka were up here in Buffalo and were stopped by our firehouse, they loved it. They absolutely loved the run box. And it's
I mean, we've had that for almost 100+ years.
Well, yeah. I mean, our department has been around for 103
103,
years.
104.
Yeah, we're going into our 104th year, I think. A little fuzzy on the math. We're firemen. We're not good at math. But that system has been in place at least for the better part of 60 years, maybe even 70, right?
Right.
And all it is simple. It's a half sheet of paper.
Or fireman proof.
It is. It's a half sheet of paper.
With a map.
Left here, right here, past this street, left here. On the back of the card.
You have a map.
And where the fire hydrants are located, right? Even though our fire dispatch generally tells us, hey, you've got hydrants located here and here, it's good to have it on paper, still in front of you. And it's a simple thing. Big bold letters, half size sheet of paper, heavy laminate. So we get a call at, and I'll just use the firehouse address, just 4531 Main Street, right? That's our incident location. We write it on the board, pull the Main Street card. And whether we're going, east or west of the firehouse, right? Pull that card. Okay, I know how to get there. Right?
It's simple.
Big time.
Yeah. Your kid could probably figure out where it is and know your ABCs. That's about it.
Right. But it's those things that, Why a new firefighter might say, well, how do you know how to get to this street?
Right.
Hey, it's a good question.
All right, so this is what we do.
We take it for granted, right, Jeff? You and I have been around here now. How many years you got in?
I just got my 8th.
Okay, so yeah, and I'm going on my 13th, I think, total.
Old man.
Yeah, but
But
right, so I take it for granted that that's how the system works. You know,
Yeah,
like we
well,
get the address and we go, right? It just becomes second nature.
yeah,
But a new guy coming in who didn't grow up in the firehouse, right? Maybe his
Right.
parents weren't members. They just moved to our district, first moved to our first due. They don't know how that works. And we shouldn't be mad at them, right? Why would they know how that works?
no,
Right.
because they usually just go to the open house. Ooh, look at the big fire that they play with and put out.
Right. So let's take that time and say, all right, kid, this is what we do, right? You're not a qualified driver yet, but
But if you happen to be up
hey,
here,
let's say you're at the firehouse hanging out and you're here and the call goes out, right? You know what to do. You know how to go to the whiteboard. I still wish it was the old chalkboard. I love the old
school.
chalkboard. But go to the whiteboard, right on there. EMS, 123 ABC Street, right? Pull that card, leave it on the counter. So when that driver comes in, boom, ready to go. The officer comes in, boom, they get on the rig and go. Right? Now, if it's a fire, yeah, pull out all of them. So they're sitting out there. So driver for engine 1, engine 2, the truck, the rescue, engine
Right.
3. Everybody just comes in, grabs a card and goes. But again, those are those things, right? That as a new person, how do you know?
right?
Hey, you know what? You like you said earlier, my example earlier. Hey, go grab the case off the rescue and fire it up. Okay. Well, A, do they know what the rescue is? We take it for granted.
It says rescue on it. Can't be it.
But in our department, we have 3,
Yeah,
right?
right.
We have our heavy rescue.
Then
We have our 2 EMS rescues, right? And they say rescue on there.
right.
So do they know when I say the rescue, right? I'm talking about the guys with the capes, coming in on the rescue, and we're the big bad, firemen, right? Do they know that? Do they, like you said, do they know where the case saw is? Do they know what a case saw is? And if they do they know how to properly fire it up without injuring themselves?
Yeah, because that's just another lesson in itself, just to get it started.
Right. And again, we take it for granted, right?
Yeah,
Pull the choke, push the decompression, 2-3 pulls, boom, it's running. Rev it up. Let's go.
well, that's just based on our experience.
Exactly.
But their slate's nothing.
Right.
And we have to build it up for
We
them.
do. And we shouldn't. And again, I think as a fire service, right, we talk about these damn millennials. Well, as a millennial, I'm telling you, that I did, I grew up playing outside and riding bikes and, cutting lawns and everything like that. But, the new kids that are coming in, my younger sister is 19 years old. So I look at the kids that are her age, that are coming in and joining. I think they're Generation Z, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Did they have those same experiences growing up that we did?
Right.
And we can moan all we want about how kids these days, blah, blah, blah. They've been saying that for years. The greatest generation said it about the boomers. The boomers said it about Generation X. Generation X said it about us, the millennials, right? Go back in time. The old timers, the really crusty old timers, were saying it about guys joining.
It's the same saying, just a
These
different
kids
face.
these days, back in my day.
Yeah, they're all saying the same thing when you think about it. It's just the blame game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even so much the blame game, right? It's somebody saying they don't know, and I'm too lazy to do anything about it.
Or ego,
Ego, right?
essentially.
Hey, look at these kids don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? An old Yogi Berra expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that quote from Salka right there. The only
Yeah.
thing the only thing you can ever be sure of is nothing is ever for sure.
And that's out of First and Last Out, which another officer of ours is borrowing from me, but I also recommend that book too.
Yeah, another great book. It's been a while since I've read it. But you're absolutely right, right? You know,
It's 100% true.
should we take a little break here?
You want to?
Yeah, why don't we, so I can get some water.
All right.
Okay, so we're back. I think one of the things, you know, where we haven't necessarily hit on, we haven't called it out by name, is culture in an organization. Right? I think it kind of goes along with leadership in the sense that
It's in the same category when you think about it.
it is, right? What's the culture of an organization? So the question, I guess, is, right, does the culture influence the leaders, or do the leaders influence the culture? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I don't think there is a this is the way it is and this is, you know, one way or the other. I think it can all be situational. I think over time things evolve, things change. You know, if you join a department that has a great culture in it, right? Why? Why do they have that great culture? It goes back to another concept, you know, of tribal leadership. And I only have scratched the surface of tribal leadership. I haven't read the book yet. I took a class in Indy, talked about tribal leadership, taught by the same guy that taught the Grateful Dead class, Anthony Correa. Great class if you're a deadhead like myself.
You and the Grateful Dead.
But, right, what drives the culture? What makes it great? Certainly, the leadership plays a part in it. So flip it around. If you have a bad culture, what is driving that? Is it the leadership? Do you have leaders that are got into a position with great intentions, right? They want to do the job. They're into it. But like we talked about earlier, maybe they're not as strongly developed to become a leader, right? Just because you're a great fireman, you're an outstanding fireman, solid, does that automatically make you a great leader because you've checked these boxes and because you've been a member for 3 years and you've got these classes? Does that make you leadership material? And if it doesn't, what are you doing to get yourself to that point? What types of, talked about it earlier, right? What types of books are you reading? What
are you reading?
Are you reading is a great thing, right?
Yeah.
And if you are, what are you reading?
Yeah.
Right?
Are they leadership based? Are they psychological? Are they people based?
Are you just going on Facebook and looking for the pictures and the you know, the joke pages?
Memes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right? You know, or are you looking for development?
Tactics.
Well, not even so much tactics, right? Take the tactical part of it out for right now.
Or even just teaching, how to teach.
But before you can teach, you have to master it. Right? So you may be a very technically proficient firefighter, but if you can't get up in front of a group and talk,
Right.
does that, where do you go? How do you
The transition from that?
How do you get better at
from
that?
A to B?
Right. How do you get better at that? So do you go to a group like Toastmasters, where, you know, it's a group where you join and, you know, basically you're given a topic and you have to come up with a speech in front of people. You know, so you kind of, it's all about developing your skills and abilities at public speaking. Right? You may be as technically proficient as it can be, but, you know, when you're teaching, you get sidetracked. You know, you kind of fall into a rabbit hole. Right? So what are some things that you do? Do you take a note sheet with you, an index card? These are the things, these are the key bullet points we want to talk about. Boom, boom, boom. Right?
Right.
Take whatever drill it is. Starting up a K-saw. These are the 5 bullet points. Right? Because you don't want to get into a situation where you have 27 bullet points with,
No, you're getting too deep in the weeds then.
You are. You're getting too granular and you're getting too far away. So keep it high level. So back to the culture thing, right?
Right.
You're a leader coming in to an organization. How do you develop that? How do you become better? Unfortunately, right? Fortunately for us, our department is very progressive and very forward thinking with sending the number of guys that they do to Indianapolis, sending the number of guys that they do to the Firehouse Expo, state chiefs,
Right.
all the other different things. Things come up here locally.
But
they send people.
But the only thing that matters is whatever they go there and take home with and they bring back and disperse to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right?
Right.
But
That's the biggest thing.
But how many departments do we know of even locally that for financial reasons or whatever can't send people? So if you want to go, you're either going on your own dime,
Right.
which Indianapolis ain't cheap.
No.
The classes.
Nashville.
Yeah. I mean, so, there's a lot of things that play into that. So again, Jeff, like somebody like you, right? You weren't able to go to FDIC this year.
Right.
But does that mean you're not learning?
No.
You got a pile of books in
I
front
got
of you.
books. I'm mainly because you just started talking about reading. This is what I read.
Yeah, right. But you got a pile of books here. A couple of books from Jocko. You got Salka and Lasky's 5-Alarm Leadership. I know you got. You talked about it earlier. Salka's book, First in Last Out. You let a friend borrow it. You got a bunch of books up on your bookshelf over here too, right? We talked about some books that I bought today.
Right. That podcast. You gotta be proactive about it.
Yeah. And are you reading, right? And again, like you said, not just books, but are you reading, articles in fire engineering, Firehouse, right? Magazines come out once a month, but are you going online? Are you checking out their articles online? Are you finding other websites that are out there, other resources, right? There's a ton of guys on Twitter that do nothing but put out quality content, right?
Quality's hard nowadays.
Right. But there's guys, Chris Tobin, who's a fireman on the Rescue 2 in St. Louis, Missouri.
Also, your buddy Jason Holbelman.
Yeah.
The last couple of days.
Yep. Chief Danny Sheridan from the Big Brother, 4-letter Big Brother. He puts out a lot of stuff. Look at the official Twitter pages of Fire Engineering, Firehouse, all those departments, right? Hey, you know what? We're doing a podcast now, but the 4-letter Big Brother does one.
Right.
Now, again, some other stuff is specific to them.
Right.
But, hey, listen to some of those podcasts where they talk about some of the old big fires that they've had and how they've influenced how they do things.
Right.
And then how we can learn from it, right, as a fire service in general. So we know when we go into a grocery store, hey, these are some things to look for because of this fire or because
this happened here. This is what we should be cognizant of now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, one of the other things that we have to, like we talk about with leadership and the culture is, and I think we mentioned it earlier, not just what are you reading, but, look for some things outside of the fire service, right? Yeah. You got the stack of Jocko books there.
Yeah.
Right?
U.S. Navy SEALs.
I've got books at home relating to my day-to-day job. Leadership is leadership, whether it's at a bank, whether it's at a manufacturing facility, whether it's on the fire service. Leadership is leadership. My old man has an expression that he uses about business. 80% of business is just purely business, running books, numbers, all that kind of stuff. The other 20% is specific to what you're doing. I think if you apply it to what we do, 80% of leadership is leadership. The other 20% is specific to the fire service. Or if I'm talking about it at work, specific to leading a technology division at work, right? Same concepts, right?
Yeah.
Communications, it's the same, right?
Right.
So instead of, at my day job, instead of getting the fancy radio, off my clip and saying,
No, you just wear your headset.
yeah, but I'm
So the
communicating.
same concepts
Yeah.
of this is what I got to do. This is how I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is, well, he's going to do this while I'm going to do that. He can handle this task.
Delegation,
I was just going to say that.
right?
Some people, micromanagers, are afraid to delegate.
I think micromanagers are afraid to not, that if they don't do something, it's not going to get done, and it's not going to get done how they want. So micromanagement, ego and micromanagement feed into each other,
Right.
right?
They feel each other.
I'm so So example, right? I'm so egotistical that if I don't do it and I leave it up to you, Jeff, well, Jeff's not going to do it the right way. At the end of the day, take a step back. Does the job get done?
Right.
Right. So let me use an example, right? We do our weekly apparatus checks,
Right.
right?
Running our saws.
So let's say it's a weekend that I'm not in town and I say, hey, Jeff, can you do this for me? Yeah, sure, Zach, no problem. I don't worry about that, I start the case saw, then I start my chainsaw, then I start the other chainsaw, then I start the generators, right? When you do it, I don't really care whether you start the generators first, the chainsaws, then the case saw, whatever. As long as
They
all
all get
five of
started.
those items get started and run, right?
Right.
So we talked a little bit about servant leadership, and we've hit on a couple of things, and it kind of reminded me of a quick story. My one of my uncles is now a retired captain from the U.S. Navy. He was in charge of a sub. A lot of responsibility with that comes with that. One of the things that he taught me was, when he didn't care how his guys got to the answer, as long as they got there, right? If this was the requirement, he didn't have to he didn't want to micromanage them. If he said, I need this done, it got done. Whether their process was A, then C, then D, then B, versus A, then B, then C, right? It's kind of a little bit opposite, I think, of what we think about when we think of the military, especially the Navy, right?
Right.
Very regimented, boom, 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 A, then B,
Very
then C.
structured.
Right. But who writes those policies and procedures, right? And when's the last time that they went through that exercise? So when we look at our SOGs, right, we write an SOG.
Right.
Well, when's the last time we did it? Are we taking a look at how it's completed and the steps?
But were those steps followed correctly at that time too?
Right. Well, that's a big thing
Yeah.
too, right? That's competency. Right? You have to be competent in your skills, right? But you don't just want somebody doing something for the sake of, well, this was the order that was given.
It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Pretty
Now,
much common sense, really.
right now, again, right? I don't want, Chief says, hey, go to the roof, right? We don't want somebody going, well, Chief, no, right? If you get up to the roof and say, hey, this is really spongy,
Yeah.
then the officer's going to make
You
the
might
call.
be on your radio telling the chief, like, I'm getting off the roof because it's spongy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right? You don't need to go round for round and debate it in the driveway of the house that's on fire. But, the chief gives an order based on the information he has at the time. That information may change.
Right.
So again, I think we kind of veered off a little bit. So let me bring it back, kind of the culture of things. Right? I think when you have a really good culture, you don't have a chief that's on the radio as much, barking out orders, right? Things are just kind of done. Things happen,
Right.
right? The chief can stand back and kind of just observe and see what's happening, what's going on.
It gives him the chance to see the bigger picture of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think he gets the, again, you have officers for a reason.
For that delegation to make
Right.
sure those specific tasks get completed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So again, I guess it kind of goes back again to that culture question. Is it because of culture? Or is culture because of leadership? And again, I think it kind of changes. I think it depends on situation.
Yeah, case by case, I feel.
Big time. Yeah.
Because if we go to the department north, south, east, or west of us, it could be opposites to us or vice versa.
Yeah, everybody's got their own way of doing things, right?
Yeah.
Right? There's no one way.
No.
So yeah, I think, again, culture and leadership are two huge critical components of the fire service. And I'm not saying that I came up with this concept, right? This is stuff that's been talked about forever,
Yeah.
right?
It's just the line of work for it.
Mm-hmm. But especially in the fire service, right? There's a ton of guys out there talking about this. This is, Jeremy, National Fire Radio, talks about culture in the fire service,
Right.
right? The guys from Flow and Vent, they talk a lot about culture and leadership and tactics. The guys from the Hook and Can, same thing. Their posts are a lot of tactical driven stuff, right? But it's that competency. How do you build competency? Repetitive nature.
Yeah. Repetition is key with your why.
So when you have a drill night, what are you doing? What are your drills?
Are they going to be basic or over the top?
Well, there's nothing wrong with basic drills,
No.
right?
No.
But
Basic, bury the bones. Just so everyone's on the same page.
right. But what are your drills based on? Are they based on your department's SOGs? If your department has them,
Right.
right? How many? Again, you read, you read some of the NIOSH reports, obviously from line of death, right? Calls, and some of the things they always say is, SOGs were not followed, or they didn't have a strong sense of what the SOGs really meant, or their SOGs were vague, right?
They weren't clear and concise.
Right. But or the training was not consistent with what the SOGs were. So when you do a drill night, in our case, it's we Wednesday nights, right? We go to drill. Our drills, like we mentioned earlier, are based in large part on our SOGs, our department SOGs, and we work with our neighboring mutual aid companies, right? We learn their SOGs, they learn ours.
Right.
We work together. So when we get that get that fire with the automatic aid and we're going,
if we're first in or if they're first in, we're gonna know this is what we got to do.
we know that
we
know that if we're the second engine on scene and we're gonna be pumping and feeding their engine, we need the adapter,
Right.
With the national standard thread to Storts,
Right.
right? But again, go back to the young proby firefighter. Do they know that? And do they know why? They see that adapter and go, well, what's that? Well, hey, this is what it is, kid.
Right.
Well, hey, how about instead of say, hey, these guys, this is what they run. Right, wrong, or indifferent. They run this type of hose. So we need to have this adapter when we go there.
Can run with them.
Right. And conversely, they have that adapter on their rig for when they come to us.
Right.
So, that's how, again, we work together. You build those relationships.
You have to coexist nowadays.
You have
with
to.
each other.
You have to, right? It's
Because we all got the same common goal.
Right, we're
Put
all
the
putting
fire
fire
out.
out. Right, right. The homeowner really doesn't care
Oh,
who puts the fire out, right? They
as
want,
long as you get there.
yeah. You get there, you
But
stretch hoses, you put the fire out, you limit the damage, you make sure people were rescued. We go home, right? They don't want to, perfect example, right? Again, the fire on Saturday that we went mutual aid to.
right.
I don't think the homeowners knew and or cared who was on those hose lines, right?
No, it's the worst day of their life.
It is, and they want to make
Yeah.
sure that the fire goes out, the exposure to their house is mitigated. Yeah, their garage that was under construction is now going to be under construction again, but we're limiting the damage, right? We're doing our job.
Yep. That's all they care
That's
about.
all they care about.
Is that we went there, we did our job, we did everything the best that we could.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What else you got?
We talked a little bit about ownership. Did micromanagement.
So,
We talked about aggressive and reckless.
right, right. We've kind of talked about, we did hit on the accountability, right? A little bit, kind of without hitting on it, but it's, again, all of these things are, you can't see my hand gestures, all of these things work together,
Yeah.
right?
They're all part of the leadership circle when you think about it.
Yeah, and it's not even so much of a circle, right? When you really start to think about it, put the word leadership in the middle and you just kind of keep drawing lines off of it. It becomes a web, right? You draw a
Right.
line to one thing. Well, then that has 3 more lines off of it and, more off of that, right? And it just
Right.
keeps spider webbing out. And that's what I'm saying, kind of said earlier, if you look at leadership, it's that big overall.
Yeah. Well, it's like you
Right.
said before, it's vague. It's just a word.
It is, right? And it's whether it's that billboard that you said, it's the big leadership billboard.
Yeah.
And, ooh, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
Or it's the big superstore, leadership superstore and 40 aisles of leadership stuff, but all different things, right? Aisle 1, you got servant leadership, next to tribal leadership, next to, right?
Right.
And
Goes on and on and on.
so as a leader, we have to be constantly looking at that stuff and reading that stuff and, kind of
What fits best for us.
exactly. I'm a big believer in, again, I said it earlier, there's not just one way to do things. I'm a big believer in, as a leader, you have, you have access to a lot of information that you can draw from, and you kind of look at what works best for you in each situation,
Right.
right? No two situations are ever alike.
But nothing will ever happen unless you put the work in for it.
Oh, right. You have to work for it. No doubt. No doubt. As firefighters, as leaders in the fire service, you have to put the work in. You have to show up every day and want to be better, right? I want to be better than I was yesterday.
This is what I'm going to do today to fix what I did yesterday.
Hey, you know what? It's that a baseball player swinging the bat, right? They didn't just get good at it overnight. It's a constant, repetitive thing, right?
Right.
Football players, right?
Yeah, winning the Super Bowl.
Pick your sport.
Yeah.
Pick your whatever, right? It's constantly, it's repetitive. It's you're always working. You're always working to try to make yourself better. It's part of that all-in mentality, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Hard work always works. So, um, so what else? What else you want to talk about? Over. I feel like we're kind of wrapping up a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah. Um.
I guess, I guess I would say that, this is an evolving thing, right? Certainly this podcast,
Right.
this endeavor that we're doing, our pages, what we post, things that, we kind of see come across. Um, again, we're guys that don't have all the right answers. We don't have all the answers. We're still learning. We learn as we go.
Every
Right?
day.
Every day,
Every day is a new lesson.
it is. It has to be. It has to be. Otherwise, you're, that old saying, right? The day you stop learning is the day you should hang them up.
Right.
Right. That's really kind of the way we have to approach things, even more so now. So, all right, wanna
All right.
call it here, and then we'll kind of regroup and see what we come up with.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. It's been fun. I'm not sure what our schedule or cadence is going to be here, but I think we'll probably figure that out over the next couple of weeks and months, and hopefully have some more content to share, some more of our ideas.
Our thoughts, experiences.
Yeah, we'll kind of see where things go. So again, thank you everybody. I'm sure we'll have more as we move on. So, all right.
All right. Thank you, everyone.